don't know if I felt left out. There was times where I felt like, okay, what's real, what's not anymore. It was not super devastating, but it was devastating. I don't know how to describe that. It's like, because all of a sudden you're different, and that was an interesting thing because I don't think that I ever felt that. I mean, as a kid, you're always like, I want to fit in. I want to fit in.
If you would like to support the efforts and research we are doing here on this podcast, make a donation using the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes or go to buymeacoffee.com/Shane's Brain. Thank you. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I am your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain. And today we're talking with the one and only Dawn Rossbach, who was recently on our education episode, but I wanted to bring her back to discuss a few more things and some of the projects that she's involved in. So welcome, Dawn. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's start out just by having you tell us a little bit about what you do for a living.
Well, currently, I am pretty much a full-time artist and co-own a gallery called Studio 176 in Park Rapids, Minnesota. So I spend a lot of time creating and selling my work. But I am retired from teaching. I taught for 24 years. I taught middle school and high school students with a few community ed type of workshops for adults.
Okay, very cool. Well, I know that my middle school and high school art teachers were a huge influence in my life. I still think of them often and fondly. So what you did was good work there, and we all appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. It can be a tough job, and it's gotten a lot harder in the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years.
All right, very cool. What about your hobbies and interests? What else do you like to do?
Well, I enjoy cooking. A lot of times I'm doing my own version of Chopped, if you're familiar with that show.
Yeah.
Whatever in the fridge happens to go. I listen to books more now than read because I'm too tired at night. I keep having to read the same thing over and over again. And I enjoy films and I like lighthearted murder mysteries, so they got a little bit more of a slant and humor to it. I'm not into the gory kind of things at all. So
I know you're familiar with the term the mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you have a mind's eye?
No, I think I thought I used to, but no, not anymore. That's for sure.
Okay. So you have aphantasia, correct?
Correct.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a lady who was just first being introduced to aphantasia. She'd never heard of it before. So someone was telling her all about it. And one of the assumptions that she made was that people with aphantasia could not be artists. It was just a conclusion she came to. So you've probably heard that a lot. What do you think about that? Why is that not the case? And how does it work for you?
I get that same reaction. And Laura, who's one of the co-owners with me at the gallery, she will tell people when maybe they're looking at my work and she will tell them I have this. And they will absolutely, without a doubt, say something like, how can she be an artist? It's impossible for them to, kind of figure that out. And like a conversation like this, I could be having a conversation here with anybody and boom, an idea will pop into my head. I don't have a visual in my head, but I have an imagination where I'll just immediately say, oh, that'd make a great artwork. And we could be talking about anything. And sometimes I will write that down and then I'll be able to reference it later. If I don't write it down, I find that I'll lose that thought. I won't remember it later. So for me, for figuring things out, most of the time I'm just going directly into Canvas or, the paper if I'm doing a charcoal drawing or something like that, and let things happen. If I have an idea, let's say it's a flying pig or something, because we've been talking about pigs or something, I don't know. I might sketch out some ideas. I might do a little research or something like this for just a reference, how does the pig exactly look if I want to do it that way? But I would say as far as creating, in my imagination part, it's kind of a verbal thought. It's definitely not in my brain. There's nothing, I shouldn't say there's nothing there, but there's no visuals up there.
I resonate with that because that's very similar for me. I'm a graphic designer. I get the same reaction. Like, how in the world do you do that if you cannot see pictures in your head? And it's very similar to what you described, right? I still have ideas. I still have thoughts. They're not visual. So where the visual part comes in is using my actual eyes, right? Actually seeing it up on the screen and playing with it and stuff. So
yeah, and it's a total reaction. It's whether it's color or shape or texture, whatever. It's a total reaction, which is really fun. I'll go, ooh,
right.
It's like there's a lot of oohs and ahs, or ooh boy, So
yeah. Yeah, it's satisfying when you're done with the project and you're like, I nailed it, and I didn't even have anything to start with, right?
Right. So when you do your graphic design, do you mostly go right on the screen, or do you do any drawing out ahead of time? Because I remember when I was teaching, I would have the kids draw out their designs first, because that was kind of the thing, especially if we're designing like a logo at the beginning, to come up with, let's say, 20 different ideas. But I would never do that. I would just go directly to the screen.
Every once in a while, I will draw it out.
Okay.
But usually I just go right to the screen.
Yeah. So
especially after doing it so long, I kind of can skip that step.
Right. Yeah. But there it is again, and that's the cool thing with the digital part, especially with graphic design. It's so immediately, and you can change things really quickly. I remember one of my friends, when we were talking about me having aphantasia as an artist, and she goes, well, I'll use a photo reference once in a while, but I'll put that in my brain. And then she goes, I'll change the background or turn it a little bit or this. And I was just like, oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I do waste a lot of paint. It's like,
right.
I went, no, so then I'm, redoing it.
Yeah, because a lot of times, I'll have an idea and then I think it's a good idea until I do it, until I get it up on the screen, and then it's like, yeah, that's not going to work.
No.
So.
Yeah, I'm there. I do a lot of things many times over.
Tell us about your grant project.
Okay, so it's very much based on what we were talking about with the how can you be an artist? I mean, that's kind of how it all started. I was doing an interview with a guy, Andrew, up in Bemidji, and a friend of mine heard the interview, and I saw her a few weeks later and ran into her, and she said, I heard your interview, and she goes, you seismically changed my life. I'm like, what? What did I say or do? And she goes, when you started talking about that, you had aphantasia, I realized I had it too. And I had been doing a little bit of research with the comprehension piece in aphantasia, that a lot of people, have a lack of comprehension when they have aphantasia, especially if they have SDAM. So I took those two ideas about how can I be an artist and the learning and comprehension piece, and wrote a grant based on the goal of just getting awareness out there for it, because I felt that whole learning piece and comprehension was really important to get to teachers and to people who work with visualization techniques, like therapists, for example. So I wrote the grant and was awarded it. And so I created this a new body of work, which will be exhibited. I have 2 shows coming up. One is in Park Rapids at the Armory Gallery, and then one will be in Fergus Falls. And then I'm going to apply for Minneapolis Institute of Arts to see if I can sneak it in there. That's a pretty big risk on that one. I shouldn't say risk, but it's pretty tough to get into that one. So, but they have a program there. So I created these 30 pieces of art. 10 of them are what I call apparitions, because I just let whatever happen, just let it appear. And I was originally going to do kind of like memory-based paintings, like paintings on memories that I could recall from, days on by. But when I started doing the apparition paintings, I would just sit at literally a blank canvas and just maybe draw a line and then just take whatever colors were on the palette and just start painting in kind of an abstract way. I'd been kind of doing some of these already, but this was kind of going a little bit further to try and talk about it while I was doing it. And then some things started happening. About the third painting, these three large shapes kind of appeared, right? And I went, oh, they remind me of the Three Maiden rocks. They're these huge rocks down in Pipestone, Minnesota, and they're called the Three Maidens, and they're part of the National Monument. And so they're like sacred rocks, according to the native culture there. And so all of a sudden, while I'm painting that, and it reminded me of that, and I was probably 11, 12 years old at the time. So it's quite some time since then. But these other memories of that area started, kind of happening too. So through the painting process, I was being able to recall some things, without having the mental image. The mental image was kind of appearing on the canvas, which was an interesting thing. So I had read there's like this connection where the information is there, but there's like something like the nerve endings or the neurons or something are stretched or warped, so the information can't come back out as a visual image, which I thought was really interesting. So I kind of felt like it's all there. It's just I can't retrieve it in a normal way, So I don't know if that's actually happening through the paintings, but I was also doing these tool paintings. So I had these 10 by 20 aluminum panels that I painted on. And so they're, quite tall shaped, right? And so the first painting I did was my dad's hammer. Now, I didn't have the hammer there and I didn't have a photograph of it. And of course, not having a mental image of it. So I was painting without these objects. And they came out fairly realistically. I did that and I did one of those old hand drills. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they kind of, you hold it in a twist. Yeah. A candy thermometer, a baker's whisk, a pair of pliers, a garden trowel, and a couple other. Anyway, I did 10 of these. And then once I had those done, I took photographs of those paintings and then had some reproduction prints made exactly the same size. And that's when I brought out the objects. I hadn't looked at them at all. And I brought the objects out so I could compare to see how well I was doing,
Okay.
And I had done this on YouTube, too, where I was painting these. They're very raw videos. They're not edited, so, and I'm having trouble with the camera and blah, blah, blah. So if anyone goes out there and looks at them, be warned, But anyway, so I try to talk through the process of what I was remembering. And I discovered that during that process, especially after I went, I should go back. After I got the prints, then I got the objects out. And then what I did is I compared. And what I did is I drew on the prints to exactly how they were supposed to be. So then I have these two side-by-side images, one of my original painting of what I thought it was like, and then one of the, reproduction with how it's supposed to be drawn on top of it. So it's layered over it, and they're pretty cool. What I discovered during that is I was able to, from knowing the tool well enough and holding it and, remembering how it feels, and the textures of it and the shapes of it, the forms and how the tool worked, I was able to get, some very close likenesses Oh, like the candy thermometer. I don't know if you're familiar with the glass tube, and then it's got like a thermometer in the center of it. And then it's got this little spring-like clip that sits on the edge of a pan or a pot when you're boiling, right, stuff. And it's got this little red knob, at least mine does, right? And what's interesting is I didn't have the knob in the right place, but everything else is pretty close, on it as far as the overall shape and, the colors and stuff. And the hammer, I was pretty close, except for when I painted the handle, I had painted it all red. And then when I got it out, there was this like vinyl grip on the handle. It was red, but there was this vinyl grip. Well, then weeks later, I was down in my basement going through some stuff, and I ran into a tool. Sure enough, it's another hammer, no vinyl grip, all red handle. And I'm like, dang it, I had it right. So it's interesting, The great thing about this is it will bring awareness of aphantasia, and hopefully, through an art exhibit, that enough people see it where, maybe somebody will say, well, wait a minute, maybe not all kids are, can learn this way or have a little bit more trouble, with their recall and their comprehension than we thought, so. Yeah, so that's basically the grant project.
That is very cool.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So can we go somewhere and look at some of these?
So I pieces? I have on the YouTube channel, and then I have a website, which is dawnrossbach.com. And then, so some of it's there. I think you would have to go into the written area. And eventually I'll post the whole body of work. Right now I just have framed it and I've got it in boxes. And so I have to take photos, but some of the photos are there. And then I have a Facebook page that's just from my art, which is, if you just go to Facebook and look up Dawn Rossbach artist, you should be able to find it hopefully there. So,
okay. All right. And I will put some links to some of that in the show notes as well.
Great.
All right. I wanted to retouch on just something a little bit. You talked about gaining memories or unlocking memories. So the abstract paintings, would you say they're kind of a tool that you can use to unlock some of those things that you may not be able to remember just in a normal way?
Well, I'm kind of hoping so because, several of them then started having that kind of a thing where it was like, well, it reminds me of this. Now, not all of them are that way. I would say 4 of them out of this set of 10. So that would be relatively new for me, but I think it's, something I want to explore. Maybe some long lost memories will show up,
When and how did you discover that you have aphantasia? Just tell your story a little bit.
I had read an article in the New York Times. It was probably 2019, 2020. Not really sure. It might have been a year or two before that. And I just dismissed it. I just went, this is some kind of hogwash, And I'm like, nobody can see any differently, It's like, and then I read an article in 2020 and, in the New York Times, very similar to the other one. And I was like, and my family had my sister and my daughter and her spouse were up, and we were all sitting around on my porch having beverages, enjoying ourselves. And I told them, I said, I read this article, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you guys can't see things in your mind, in your brain. And, well, yeah, of course, now remind you, we're having beverages. I'm like, no, you can't. Yeah, we can, it took a little bit, but they can finally convince me that, yes, they do. And I was like, what? And I didn't think too much of it at first. And then I started looking into it a little bit more and doing some research. And I was like, oh, wow. I don't know if I felt left out. There was times where I felt like, okay, what's real, what's not anymore. It was not super devastating, but it was devastating. I don't know how to describe that. It's like, because all of a sudden you're different, and that was an interesting thing because I don't think that I ever felt that. I mean, as a kid, you're always going, I want to fit in. I want to fit in.
Right.
So it gave me a really good sense of how kids might feel when they're being singled out or something. I retired in 21 and I taught my last year from home. So I never really got to use what I learned about aphantasia with my teaching, because point blank, I would say all the metaphors, while I was teaching, thinking that's what they were, is just metaphors,
Right.
picture this, in your mind. I use the words in your mind's eye, all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I still do.
Yeah.
It's hard not to. It's the only words we have.
Right? Yeah, so that was kind of my story. And then, like I said, I just kind of kept researching. I joined a couple of groups on Facebook. I found the one where we connected.
A dork parade, a dork parade. The people point and gawk. It's not a dork parade, you guys. It's just our family walk. The Sun is on Fire, a ragtag mob of hilarious poems, is available on shanesbraindomain.com and Amazon.
So how do people react when you tell them about aphantasia?
Most of them are pretty shocked. There's a few people that know about it. I think I've met 4 or 5 people now in real life. One of the funniest ones was when I was down in the cities, the Twin Cities, and we were going to garage sales, and my kid and her spouse, they found this dresser or something. So they were going to go back and get the car, unload some stuff out of my car, and then, come back to, load up this dresser, right? And I said, well, I'll just stay here. So I'm talking to these people that, own, have the garage sale going, and I'm there for a while. So it comes up, that I'm an artist and they're artists too, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, I wrote a grant. And they said, oh, those are really hard to get. What did you write about? And I said, well, aphantasia, blah, blah. And they didn't know what it was, So I'm going on and I'm explaining the whole thing. And there's another woman there. She's going through some rugs or something. And all of a sudden she goes, I'm so sorry to interrupt. And she goes, and I'm eavesdropping. I'm so sorry I'm doing that because I have aphantasia and I'm an artist too. And it was like,
Very
oh
cool.
my God, it was like big hugs. I said, I found my people.
Right.
So Kay and Jay come back, with the car, and they're like, are you kidding? You're like best friends with these people now too,
Yeah. It's a connection.
Right. Yeah.
In retrospect, did having aphantasia affect how you performed in school?
I think so, mostly on the comprehension piece. I know I scored lower on comprehension, in some of the tests. I still couldn't tell you what an adverb is,
I'm the same way. I cannot figure that stuff out.
Oh,
It does not stick in my brain. I learn it and then it's gone.
Yeah. And to think I was going to become an English teacher, somebody said, oh, you could be a great English teacher, and it's like, because that's kind of where I was heading, and I was good at the literature stuff, and interpreting it, but not the grammar.
All right. So just talking about education again, real quick. I mean, we just did a whole episode on education and aphantasia and how it's important to spread awareness and start getting this into the schools and stuff like that. But just to play devil's advocate a little bit, do you think it's really that big of a deal? Like, the percentage of people with aphantasia is small. All of us with aphantasia, we made it through. We're okay. We're living good lives. Is it really that big of a deal? What do you think?
I think it's a big enough deal. It's, like you got your audio learning, your visual learning, your hands-on demo learning and stuff like that. You have those different ways of doing it. And I don't think it fits that category. I think it's just more of a thing like, this kid is not going to be able to retrieve information necessarily on their own. it's that recall kind of thing, especially if they have SDAM. Like I remember like at the beginning of the year, sometimes, especially I think it was like elementary, and they would say, write about your favorite thing you did this summer. And I'd be like, what did I do? Must have went swimming, but there was like no particular event, even though I'm sure there was something that happened that was a highlight. I just couldn't recall it. I've always been against testing too. I mean, and when I taught art, I didn't have to do testing, so to speak,
Right.
because the product was the end result. So I think I think it's important enough, because I mean, this kid could be talented in so many other ways, but their brain isn't going to allow it. And I know we had, brain research as far as staff development, here in Minnesota. But I mean, those things are so short. You get like 1 hour the whole year, and everything is crammed into this little condensed thing. So I think it's important enough that it needs to be there. Maybe just like a kid with dyslexia or autism, that kid with dyslexia is going to learn differently. Doesn't mean they can't learn. Things are going to be different for them. And I think it's in that realm. Like we all know, it's not considered a disability, but it's certainly something that affects the learning. I kind of want to say yes, and I kind of want to say no, because I don't want it to be a big deal where kids are like labeled.
All right. Beautiful. I love it. All right. I want to delve a little bit more into your specifics. Can you picture a chicken in your mind?
I have no visual of it, but if you say chick, I'm going to be able to describe it somehow.
Okay. What about if I use a different word? Like, can you visualize a chicken in your mind? Can you imagine a chicken in your mind? Can you think of a chicken in your mind? Do all those words kind of seem to mean the same thing to you?
The word think is now different.
Okay.
I can think of a chicken. I can't visualize a chicken, and I can't picture a chicken.
So sometimes when I've told people about aphantasia, their response is, well, then how do you think?
Yes.
Because they think in images. So what is a thought to you? How would you describe a thought?
There are words that are going in my head, or, it's like somebody talking to me, but I don't hear it. I'm thinking it. So that's a really hard description. I mean, I kind of hear it, I guess. Like when you hear yourself being recorded, and you hear that play back, it's like a completely different voice.
Right.
That's kind of what it's like in my brain. It's like a completely different voice.
Okay. So when I asked you to picture the chicken or think of the chicken, was there any detail involved in the thought? I know there wasn't a visual, but was it moving? Was it still? Did it have color? Did it have surroundings? Was it 2D or 3D? Did any of those kind of things come to your mind?
It's kind of a rounded shape. I think that was probably like, if I'm going to begin to draw it, where would I start? It's going to have this kind of balloony body shape. No, there's no surroundings. There's no visual. I know I'm going to have to think about the legs. I know I'm going to have to think about the beak, the little red thing at the top, whatever that's called. And I think that's how, like, if somebody asked me to draw something, I'm going to be going, kind of down this verbal list, this, what does it have? What have I observed?
Okay. So that's what happened when I said to picture a chicken. You kind of went to the art portion of it.
Yeah. How would I draw?
How would I draw it?
Yeah. To me, I think there's a definite connection there,
What about the sensation of touch? Could you reach out and pet the chicken in your mind and kind of feel that?
I think that one is a little bit more in tune. I think that helped me when I was painting those objects, like the candy thermometer. It's like, I know what that glass feels like. I know what the hammer, the vinyl grip feels like, and the metal, feels like. I would say that, it's still not like super enhanced. Is that the word? I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for, but Like if you were to do a scale of 1 to 10, the taste and smell are probably at like a 1 or 2, and maybe the touch is like a 3 or 4.
So the visual would be a 0 on that
0.
scale.
Correct.
Where would the sound be on the scale?
Sound, I would say probably a 2 to 3. It's so hard to know those things when you don't know what somebody else's experience is.
Right. Yeah. That's why every time I talk to somebody, I always leave with a certain sense of, I'm not really sure where they fall and everything, because it's so hard to describe and it's so hard to know, especially when the only mind we've ever experienced is our own.
Right.
And everything else we're just kind of guessing at. So,
right.
And people really struggle with what is going on in my mind. Like a lot of times we've never even thought about it. Right.
Mhm.
So to try and describe it in the limited words that we have is difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay. I want to do one more little exercise with you here.
Okay.
So I want you to imagine a cup on a table. Now imagine somebody walks up to the table and tips the cup over.
Okay.
Okay. Can you tell me what type of cup it was?
Well, no. No,
What,
I can't.
what about the color?
Well,
the color?
I went right with a diner cup. If I was going to paint it, or draw it, it's going to be a diner cup. It's going to be white, and it was coffee in there.
Okay. What about the table? Was there any details on the table?
No.
Okay. What gender was the person that pushed the cup?
Sorry. No. Don't know. Mystery.
All right. Did you already know the answers to those questions, if you knew them at all, or did you just kind of have to come up with it as I was asking you?
That's the latter there. I came up with it as we were asking. Yes.
Right.
No.
This little exercise is one of the best ways to tell if people have aphantasia or not, because visual people, they'll know all the answers because they saw it all.
Right.
Right. Where with us, a lot of times it's like, I don't know. It was all just kind of vague and I didn't really come up with any of those details. Right. Was there any sound in that experience? Did you hear anything at all in there?
No.
So in general, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
It is just black. Unless sun is coming through, and then my eyelids are a little bit red.
Can you think of nothing if you want to?
My brain is talking all the time. So it's a pretty nonstop conversation.
Just in that quiet thought way, it's always going.
Yep. Always going.
Have you ever had moments of visualization or something that was outside the norm?
I will say there's been a couple of times when I'm in that, like halfway between sleeping and halfway awake, where I've had, some, but they're more of color shapes and like light forms, if anything. But I do dream. I don't remember them often, but when I dream, it's usually very vivid with colors and people and feelings, and stuff. So, which I appreciate my dreams so much more now, because then it's like, okay, you can visualize. It's just, you can't do it while you're awake.
And talk a little bit more about what I'm calling the mind's ear. Would you say you have an inner monologue?
Yes.
Okay. Again, just kind of playing with the different words that we use. There's also inner voice or inner dialogue or self-talk. Do you identify with all those as well? Do those all kind of mean the same thing to you?
Yeah, for me, I think they're very similar in their meaning.
You said that you can hear that a little bit, kind of.
It's not like an actual, like if you were to put like a earbud in, that sound is different than my thought sound.
So you can identify, though, that it is your voice that you're quote unquote hearing?
It's not like it's audio in there. You are asking the impossible.
I know, isn't it fun?
Yeah. How do you describe a thought? But it's a nonstop thought and dialogue.
So can you identify the pitch and the tone of it? Is it anything in that way?
There might be times where I'll just say, "Oh, stop it, Dawn," in my head. Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of, pitch and tone to it. But most of the time, it's just like thinking about things. So there isn't much, probably like this dialogue we're having now. It's kind of at that same level of conversational tone.
So do you play out conversations in your mind?
No, I think it's more of just reaction to what I'm taking in. Yeah, I would say it's either in response to something or process. This is what I need to do. This is how I'm going to go about it. What do I, thinking it out like that or.
Okay. All right. So you said the feeling of touch was a little bit stronger than some of the others.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. When I say the word sandpaper, do you automatically feel that in your mind?
Yeah, I've been using a lot of it lately.
So on a scale from 1 to 10, what's that like?
I would say it's, because I can't actually feel it, but I know the feeling. So I'd say it's in the 4, 4 to 5.
Okay. If you imagine a day at the beach, can you feel the breeze on your face?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine it. I mean, and I can definitely imagine, a gentle breeze, like how that might affect something compared to a strong, forceful, wintry, snow-filled one. A difference in that and how my skin would feel.
See, I don't get any of that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's just nothing. It's like it is visually. There's just nothing there.
Nothing
of substance.
Okay.
When I talk to people, I always have a hard time with that because, again, everybody's so different. Some people, say, when I ask them, can you see it in your mind? They say yes. And then I say, can you feel it? And they say, well, I can imagine it. Like, but isn't that what you're doing when you're saying, yes, you can see it? Why is the answer different? I can't figure out what is actually happening in people's minds where imagination, again, it just means something different to everybody. And so, so it's so hard to know exactly what is happening.
That's interesting that, when you bring up the whole thing with touch, because if I think about velvet, I know how that's going to feel. I know how it's going to feel.
But the same thing is with Apple. You know what an apple looks like. So what's the difference? Why is the touch ranking higher than the visual is? Because it's the same thing, isn't it? It sounds like you're describing the same thing.
Yeah, kind of. And you're right. I mean, I know how it feels and I know what the apple looks like, but I can't. Up here, I don't have the apple and I don't really feel the velvet, but I think the sensation is stronger.
Okay.
Maybe the touch feeling for me is almost like the people who have, instead of a super vivid red apple, maybe have a gray, dim apple.
Right. Yeah, I like that. That's a good analogy. All right. So can you feel the water on your feet? Imagining you're at the beach.
I can't feel the wetness. I can feel the temperature.
Okay. What about if you imagine a hot stove? Can you feel the temperature of that?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's as strong as like if I put something in my hand. I think there's a difference there. But then there's the sun. I mean, I could kind of picture the sun beating on my face and warming it up.
Okay, what about pain? If you touch the hot stove or something like that, can you feel the pain?
That one is weird. It's a weird thing. I don't have a sense on that one.
Okay, good enough. What about hugging? Like, could you imagine hugging someone in your mind and kind of feel that?
A little bit.
So are the feelings attached to that as well? Do you feel the emotions that you would have?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about reading. You mentioned that real quick too, but I want to talk more about it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you read a novel, how well can you think about what the characters and the surroundings might look like?
I don't have a visual picture, of like the surroundings or what the character, I never have visions of what the character looks like unless it's really descriptive. But I mean, I still don't have a picture in there, but I have an idea. If they describe it's mountains and a forest or something, the forest is usually going to be kind of dark and gloomy and doomy. It isn't going to be one of these spread out where there's a lot of light coming through it or something like that. So it's always going to have a scary connotation for me. But as far as picturing it, no, but I can imagine the surroundings or the characters.
Okay. What about what the characters sound like?
No.
Do you hear any narration, like somebody actually reading the book?
My own brain might be narrating with it, but not in the sense like I'm hearing a voice telling me the words.
You mentioned audiobooks before. Do you prefer audiobooks?
I do now. Yeah, a friend of mine who owns a bookstore said, you should try this. Have you ever done this? Because she will listen to books when she's repairing books and stuff like this. She'll listen to books. And so I started doing that through her bookstore. And I love it because I probably listened to like 10 books in a matter of 6 weeks while I was painting. It was so much fun. And for some reason, I feel like I retain the story better. I have a really hard time remembering what a movie or a book, is about. I can say, yeah, I saw it. I don't remember what it was about, though.
Right. So would you say it's a different experience in your mind from reading words on a page as to listening to somebody narrate it to you?
It is a little bit different because they're bringing in their own inflection into it. There's definitely better narrators, on these things. So what they're bringing to the table to it is just a different experience. I think it's just like film. Depending on who directed it, can be a great film or it could be, kind of half-assed.
What does the phrase, the book was better than the movie, mean to you?
It's because somebody took the book and then they had to condense it into 2 hours when it took you maybe 6 hours to read. There's so much left out. There's always something left out. I think for the people who don't have aphantasia, they have imagined this story. So for me, though, I can watch the movie, having read the book, and go, this is great.
Right.
Because now there's a visual to it, which I never had.
Right. Yeah, I can resonate with that. Is it easy for you to fall asleep?
Sometimes. But there are times when, no, it's not because my head is racing, and I'm thinking about something. What's probably worse for me is if I wake up in the middle of the night and then I can't get back to sleep knowing it's like, oh God, it's 2:00 in the morning. I have to get up at 6, and then my head starts spinning.
Okay. So even though there's no visuals, it's still pretty intrusive at times.
Yeah.
What does the phrase counting sheep mean to you?
Well, that was definitely, just a metaphor, for sure. In fact, 2 of the paintings in my thing became counting sheep at the Harborview Cafe. So I started painting these almost like abstract things, and I had these little white spots, and they looked like a little bit like clouds. And I went, no, they kind of look like sheep, And so I made them into little sheep.
Okay, so you mentioned you dream. You said they were very vivid. I'm assuming they're in color.
Yep.
What about all the other senses that we've talked about? Are those present in your dreams?
Yes, very much so, especially feeling and touch.
Are your dreams in first person or third person?
First person.
Would you say your dreams are fairly close to how you experience reality?
Oh, no, I have bizarre things happening in my stories.
Right. Well, other than unlikely things, but does it feel like life? Like my dreams are there, but they're very mysterious. I don't quite understand how they are manifesting. My visualization during the day is a 0.
Okay.
Right. My actual vision, my reality, what I actually see is a 10. And my dreams are somewhere in the middle. Like I know that there's some visual going on, but I can't really identify it. Like if I wake up, I can't really identify what people were wearing, or if it was in first person or third person, or whether I cannot identify those specific things. It's not real enough for me to know those answers. If you want to recall a memory, how does it manifest in your mind?
If you ask me a question, like remember this or something, chances are, I would say 90% of the time, I'm not going to remember it if it was an event that we did, right? If I have a photograph of it, then things are going to be things. And this is what boggles me. It's like, I've learned things. I've learned math. I've learned how to draw. I've learned how to read. I've learned how to do this and this and this and this. How is it that I can recall that, but I can't recall a personal event memory? And maybe that's where that SDAM, it's got that autobiographical thing in there.
Right.
So where's that going that can't get,
So in those type of personal memories, are those in first person or third person, or can you tell?
I don't think I can tell.
Do you feel like your memories are accurate?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I tell people I would make the absolute worst witness. So let's just hope nothing ever comes by me that I have to go on the stand, because first thing I say is, by the way, I have aphantasia. So, yeah.
All right.
Throw the case right out.
So if you had to memorize something, say you're given a speech or something, 10-minute speech or something, what's your process of memorizing something like that? Can you do it?
No, I have a really hard time with it. I recently gave a presentation about aphantasia to a group of 90 students, right? But I knew the stuff because it was happening to me, where a picture came up, on my slideshow, and then I could talk a long time about it. But for me to have to memorize, I could never do a play, because I can't remember those lines.
How would you describe how your mind stores information?
I can't even begin to answer that, because those are the questions I ask every day. Where is it?
Right. Does your mind feel like it is an area or a space?
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay. In what way?
Almost like it's a separate being in my head, like it's my soul,
Okay. Does it ever feel like there are different rooms or compartments in your mind?
No.
Can you recite the alphabet backwards?
God, no. We'll start with Z. X, Y, Z. See, that's how I have to do it, like X, Y, Z. So I go Z, Y, X, and then B. Maybe I could start with S, S, T, U, V, W, X. So, no. We'll just stop.
All right. Love it. Okay. So if you were to try and give a general description about how your mind works, how would you describe it?
I have this nonstop dialogue going on, and during conversations, that dialogue is going on, but it'll get interrupted. And sometimes when I'm speaking, a thought will come in and I'll pause, and people will look at me like, what's going on? But it's not because I've forgotten. I've got this whole other conversation going on at the same time. And then a lot of quick responses to, if you start talking about dogs, I'll go boom, boom, boom. And then I'll have all these little things about dogs, sitting there, waiting to get out,
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't happen. And I think that a lot of people, that is common, you say something, it reminds me of something,
Right.
I think it's quick on some things too. I used to be very quick-witted. I don't think I'm as quick or as witty as I used to be, but
What do you think are some of the downsides to having aphantasia for you?
It'd be really interesting as an artist if I did have that capability to imagine things or picture things in my brain. I'd be curious to know what that's like. But the advantage is I feel like I don't carry any memories of traumatic things. I think that's a real blessing in disguise.
Are there any other upsides that you can think of to having aphantasia? Any other positives?
If somebody has both the inner monologue and obtrusive images going on, that would be pretty annoying. You know?
Right. Okay, last question. If you could wave a magic wand and get rid of your aphantasia, would you do it?
I wish there was I could have it for a day to see if I want to continue waving the magic wand. I mean, like I said, I appreciate my dreams so much more now,
Right.
because sometimes it's people who have passed on, will show up, in the dreams, so that's kind of cool. And so maybe it doesn't seem to bother people too much that have the visual ability. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh my God, I wish this would go away. I don't hear anybody saying that.
Well, I've had several people say that.
Oh, are they the hyper?
Yeah, the hyperphantasia people. Yeah, I mean, on one level, they really love it. But sometimes when I describe not having the bombardment, like a lot of it's very front and center, in your face, intrusive,
Okay.
And when I describe my state of being is pretty calm and quiet and dark, like they're like, oh, that sounds nice, right? Especially at certain times. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of envy on both sides of it.
Okay. So if you had the mid-level, be able to pull up something,
Yeah, some people have more control over it than others. It's very intrusive. So, like you said, it can get pretty annoying. All right, Dawn. Well, that is pretty much it. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I have anything else. I think I've shared too much.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It was a fun interview, and I really appreciate the work you're doing with your, what's it called? Your grant.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool, and I'm going to look into that a little bit more, look up some of the things you've done there. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Shane. I appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.